We're going to pivot now to our third poster session. Pivot quickly to that. And we've got, again, we're going back to these short 5-minute presentations, these kind of lightning presentations. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 really pretty exciting presentations. Jennifer Merolla, Danielle Lee Tomson, Dario Trujano-Ochoa, Zeyu Zhang, and Zhengyuan Zhu, in that order. So we'll start with Jennifer, if you're ready to go.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. And thanks to you, Betsy and Sabrina, for putting together this amazing conference and pivoting so quickly, especially so we could all learn from each other and not interfere with all the efforts on the ground to contain the fires and all the relief efforts going on. So really appreciate that. So I'm just going to share my screen. And we'll start from the beginning. Okay, great. And I also want to thank Mindy, who teed up a lot of, this is yet another kind of subset of a part of a much larger project looking at election communication and how that might impact confidence in election results. And so there's a lot I won't need to cover, which is good because I have 5 minutes. And so on this particular project, it's with Cheryl Boudreau, Thad Kauser, and Mac Lockhart. And we were working in collaboration with the elections group with Jennifer Morell and her team. And yes, it is uncanny how similar our names are. And so what they've been really interested in is looking at how to communicate information about post-election audits. What we learned yesterday from the presentation that Charles Stewart gave is that members of the public really don't know very much about audits. But what they report in surveys is if they knew audits were taking place, they would have much more confidence in elections. But if we go to, say, websites with post-election audits, most of the reports are pretty dense, right? So that's not really information that people are likely to read, members of the public to read and access. And so the elections group has been working on communication strategies, developing templates that are much shorter, that might be better to disseminate to the general public. And so they've been really interested in testing the effectiveness of those templates. And so some of the particular questions that we were asking and working with them was whether some of the templates that they're developing increase confidence in a given election audit, right, for a particular race in a particular locality. And then the second question we were interested in is whether the effectiveness of these messages might spill over to other races in that county, as well as maybe beyond that county, so the state or national level. And then finally, we were really interested in exploring whether these messages about post-election audits actually increase knowledge of audits. And so we have a few different questions. And I may only get to results for a few of those. Our design is pretty simple. So we fielded a survey with a large national sample from Lucid, and we conducted this particular survey just before the November election, so about a week before. And so the election group developed these kind of one-pagers, which I'll show you in a second, based on the post-election audit from Washoe County's 2024 primary election. And one of the other things I should mention that we were interested in, which is more exploratory, is what aspects of information about audits may be particularly effective. And so they designed a few different templates. So within the study, we randomly assigned people to one of 3 different kind of one-pagers, and they're all combined here on this screen. And so one of them kind of focuses on the audit process. So there's a lot of information, as you can see, but it's still one page, much shorter than a full audit, post-election audit report. And they use a risk limiting audit in this particular county. The second one instead focuses more on the results of the audit. And so in this particular case, there were 0 discrepancies found, but as many people on this call know, it's usually there are a few discrepancies in post-election audits. And then the final treatment we were interested in is what if we combine both pieces of information, right? So a little bit on the results and a little bit on the process. Would that be particularly effective? And we compared these treatments to a control treatment that was about recycling that was designed to look very similar to these, especially that kind of audit process treatment. And so people were randomly assigned to the control group or one of these info sheets, and then they answered those kind of questions about confidence in elections, similar to the ones that Mindy showed us. And we designed a few particular questions about confidence in Washoe County's elections. And so here I tried to condense all this into, one simple table. And so the first column is that kind of confidence that votes were counted as intended in Washoe's primary. So that was the audit report that they read about. The next was about how votes would be counted in the presidential election in that county. Then we have the results for kind of the SPAE measures that Mindy discussed. And in that final column are the effects for knowledge about audits, which is based on kind of 3 factual questions. And we can put those into a scale. And so I just want to highlight a few key findings. I know I don't have a lot of time. First, we found that pretty much all 3 of the messages relative to our baseline recycling message did increase confidence that votes were counted as intended in the primary. We found that the process message was actually a bit more effective than the results message. Those were statistically different from each other. Second, this did spill over to other elections in the county, right? So it did increase confidence that votes would be counted as intended in the presidential election. However, as you can see, we didn't find much spillover effect to, say, kind of local vote where the respondent lived, or their own state, or the national level. So really it's confined to the county. But the good news is that, for election officials, if they're trying to use some of these templates, they don't necessarily need to create a new template for each race to increase confidence, right? And especially because the process treatment was particularly effective, right? That could just be a one statement you have and you try to disseminate it widely. And then finally, I'll just note that we did also find some positive effects for all 3 treatments on increasing knowledge in audits. And so those were the kind of the key results to highlight. We're still analyzing some of this data and look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Danielle.
Everyone, I am joined. Just let me share my screen here for a second. Excellent. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Tomson. I'm the research manager at the Center for an Informed Public at the University of Washington. And I'm joined in this presentation by Stephen Prochaska, a PhD student. Now, you might be familiar with our work. We've been conducting rapid research of election integrity rumors. These are rumors as they emerge in real time in US elections since 2020. And this presentation is built off of a blog post we published this fall, which Stephen will throw in the chat. Now, we say we study rumors online. We see rumors are a natural part of the human sense-making process in highly uncertain moments, like democratic elections. And typically, we seek evidence of what's going on in these uncertain moments, such as videos, photos, hearsay, to try to make sense of what's happening. So this evidence may be reframed into a larger story of what's happening. Now, evidence and explanations of that evidence may be used for political ends. This is sort of the anatomy of a rumor, if you will. So what I'm showing to you today is a proposed framework for understanding some of the offline factors contributing to online rumoring dynamics during elections. And what we saw at the center was evidence of a right-wing political strategy of engaging election integrity and election fraud rumors by building and maturing what we've called evidence generation infrastructure to create these videos, images, and data, which then are amplified, reframed, and used to mobilize the public. So it's really important to understand that we're not just studying the information itself, but evidence of the offline infrastructure of organizations, production companies, technology tools, and legal organizations that are both creating and utilizing these rumors and the evidence. So you can conceive of this as the 3 C's of evidence generation and election contestation: convince, collect, and contest. So you go out to try to convince the public of mass voter fraud through documentary, through campaigns, through different sorts of storytelling. Then once convinced that mass voter fraud is happening, the public can go out to to volunteer. So these organizations will create tools or incentivize volunteerism to collect evidence of said fraud, sort of reinforcing again the rumors and the storytelling. Then that evidence is then used to mobilize and contest potentially election processes, procedures, or even results. Now, while rumors exist across the political spectrum, we have not seen evidence of a comparable resource political strategy to take advantage of election integrity rumors on the left in the past few cycles. So we're just going to go into these 3 C's to understand them a little bit more.
Yeah, so the first C here that Danielle mentioned is convince. This is probably familiar to a lot of the folks here. Basically, it describes ongoing persuasion campaigns to convince the public that election fraud is widespread. We see this messaging in various places, including legacy media, various political campaigns, and social media, which is where we focus most of our study. In 2024, one of the most prominent narratives we observed involves false and misleading claims that non-citizens were voting in large numbers. This includes conspiratorial claims that the Democrats were intentionally importing non-citizens across the southern border while simultaneously weakening voter security in order to allow them to vote, presumably for Democratic candidates. One of the examples of thousands of posts we saw kind of pushing this narrative is up on the screen right now. This is from the Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project, which misleadingly suggests that non-citizens were knowingly registered to vote. This is later debunked, and it turns out that the people in the video had just kind of agreed to whatever the interviewer was saying to get them off their doorstep.
So once persuaded of this mass voter fraud or election integrity issues, volunteers and the public were encouraged to go collect perceived evidence of alleged fraud. And this might be by recruiting poll workers or poll watchers, but also arming regular citizens using technological tools such as True the Vote's Vote Alert app or Elon Musk's election integrity community through his America PAC. I know Mike Lindell also had one. So like as more seemingly suspicious videos of alleged election integrity issues or voter fraud are posted online, these dedicated images and evidence can be used to then parlay into the next step of our framework.
So that's the final and third C here is the contest, and this describes, generally speaking, efforts to contest election processes and results. So our work highlights how the perceived evidence we've discussed is used to motivate lawsuits and additional activism, including protests, mass voter challenges, as well as political pressure campaigns, such as the drive to push states to pull out of the Electronic Registration Information Center, which is otherwise known as ERIC. And these lawsuits and updates from them are, as well as subsequent activism such as protests, are then re-amplified back online. So this goes back into the first C of convincing, further adding credibility to these ongoing narratives that motivates further participation and the ability to contest election results. I think one of the things to note here is that it's important to recognize that this activism has often worked against the stated aims of the activists in the sense that they're taking a lot of resources away from election officials and administrators who are now spending time having to respond to these accusations or complaints or public records requests instead of actually performing their job and maintaining election security. I think one of the primary takeaways from our work overall, and one of the pieces that it highlights, is that the production of information, evidence, and rumors is not occurring in a vacuum. So because of this, future work really needs to account not just for information dynamics, but also needs to attend to how offline infrastructures facilitate production of rumoring that looks and feels organic, when in fact it is often coordinated or even manufactured.
That's that.
Great.
Question.
Thank you so very much. We will come back with some questions in a few minutes. Dario, up to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for organizing this. I'm sorry that we cannot meet in person, but I know that it's like very challenging to organize this with everything that is happening at UCLA, and I hope that everybody's fine. Let me mention that one of my collaborators is Jose Gloria, who is a PhD student at UCLA. And I am also in California, but a little bit further. I am in my last year for the PhD at UCSB. So this project is about the effects of feedback on news verification demand. And we were interested in exploring if feedback can be used as a way to influence the demand of verification by users of platforms or any kind of person, and see if also this feedback can have an impact on the confidence that they have about their ability to distinguish what is misinformation and what's not. This was an experiment, so we run this in Mexico with undergrad students, and the task was very simple. We presented 50 headlines only with information, the headline, no context or anything, just information, and they have to answer 2 questions. If they think that the information there is accurate, or if it contains false information. This, for example, is one headline that we use, translated, of course, into English now, saying that Iran censored the Olympics, and they have to decide if that was accurate or not, and then mention if they were willing to pay for this. So they were actually providing a certain amount of money to do this. So they were making money for a right classification, and also they can decide, I'm not that sure about this headline, and then I can verify it. So that was for 50 headlines. 30 of them were non-political, 20 of them were political, and they were organized in blocks of 10 headlines. At the end of each block, we asked them how confident they were about their accuracy rate for the past 10 headlines that they classified. And we randomly assigned them into one of 3 groups: the control group without nothing, no feedback. The individual feedback, we provide them with the accuracy rate for them in the last 10 headlines, and a group feedback where we provide a feedback in terms of the accuracy rate for another 50 participants. So one of our main results is the willingness to pay was far less in the group with feedback about others. That was a little bit surprising. We're expecting the opposite, but that's what we found. You can see here that the 2 lines, blue, are our treatment with feedback about the performance of others, and that is to the left. And in this CDF, that means that people were in general willing to pay less in this group relative to the other 2 groups. Of course, also they were, you can also notice here that in terms of the classification, if they classify something as false in the solid lines, they were also less willing to verify. Saying the other way, they were willing to pay more when they think that the headline was true. Something very similar happens with political and non-political. Considering these 2 groups, we also saw that the control group, the feedback in terms of others was also having a lower willingness to pay, and people were willing to pay more when the headlines were political. So what we observe here is basically the general effect that we were trying to understand the willingness to pay. Of course, this is like raw data, and what we wanted to do here is actually run the regression and see if we can understand this in terms of all the variables that we measure. So basically, this regression shows what I mentioned in the graphs. If you notice the regression about the willingness to pay, there is a negative effect of being in the group with the feedback about the performance of others is significant only at 10%, but it's still significant. If they classify something as true, they're willing to pay more. Also, this is accuracy, something that they didn't report, but we know if they were right or not. And when they were right about the classification, they actually decrease the willingness to pay. So it means that they are conscious about how good or bad they are. It's evidence of that. Of course, the political headline, they increase the willingness to pay. And we also measure confidence and accuracy. And the important thing is that they were more confident about political headlines, and there was no effect of other treatments. And a positive effect about blogs in terms of accuracy. That means that people were learning more through the task. Now, what is the main hypothesis that we have about this? Well, at the beginning, our main hypothesis was that people were overconfident, something that has been reported before in other context, but what we actually observe in this sample is that people were underconfident. If you notice, the accuracy estimate for the three groups is between 52 to 57%. But when you notice the correct answer, that is actually the performance is between 59 and 62. And those numbers are pretty similar to the accuracy rate from the group. So that means that in general, they were receiving feedback that goes above their expectations, and that might be behind the reason this feedback was actually decreasing the willingness to pay. So something that we did with this, something that we want to conclude with this is that we must be careful about what are the effects in terms of providing feedback to the to people, because depending on what were their previous beliefs, that might backfire in terms of, for example, in our case, decreasing the willingness to pay to verify. And of course, there are things about like the political content of the headlines. People seems to be more interested in political headlines, and they were willing to pay more. And of course, we're not saying that this is the only strategy, but we hope that this can help to complement other strategies to fight misinformation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So next up is Zeyu.
Okay, so I'm very glad to present our work here. My name is Zhang, a postdoc from University of Texas at Arlington. Today I'm going to present a work titled Toward Automated Fact-Checking, Detecting Check-Worthy Factual Claims by Claimbuster. So we know that there tend to be a lot of falsehood or misinformation during the election, because many forces will try to interfere with the elections. For example, during the 2024 election, a video was spreading, featured a Haitian man saying he just got to the US and had voted in 2 counties, but it turns out to be a fake video made in Russia. Therefore, there are many institutions work on fact-checking, such as PolitiFact, Full Fact, CNN, and so on. However, there are massive claims made by news articles, social media posts, speeches of public figures, and more. It's impossible for fact-checkers to go over all the content, and most of the content may not even worth fact-checking. Therefore, we need some better methods to help fact-checkers to identify the factual claims that worth fact-checking. Take the following 2 statements as an example. The first statement says video shows people in Los Angeles looting from homes during wildfires, which is worth fact-checking because we don't want it to be spreading if it's misinformation, and the general public will be likely to be interested in knowing whether it's true or not. So we say this kind of a claim is check-worthy. And the second statement says, I love Los Angeles and it's so beautiful, which is clearly not worth fact-checking because there's nothing to check, okay? So we say this kind of claim is non-check-worthy. Of course, there are some statements that are very hard to judge. Here, I just want to give you a rough idea how it is defined. So how do we quickly identify check-worthy factual claims? So our method is to train AI models to help us. We developed a model called Claimbuster, which is one of the earliest and most practical models in this field. It has contributed to at least 33 claims featured in 30 articles by prominent fact-checking outlets, including the Washington Post. The API currently has 362 registered users, ranging from academics to professional journalists across several countries. And the API has been called over 219 million times. Fact-checkers and others can use Claimbuster during the live coverage of an event to help them discover claims that needs more caution to trust. How does the Claimbuster work? So basically, if you give Claimbuster a statement, it will output a score ranging from 0 to 1. Scores closer to 1 indicate high checkworthiness, while scores close to 0 indicate low checkworthiness. So ClaimBuster is trained on historical presidential debates. We collect all the previous debates transcripts and manually annotate them to produce a ground truth dataset. Then use it with machine learning algorithms to develop a ClaimBuster model. After that, ClaimBuster can be applied to massive claims to identify the important ones for fact-checking. So for the ground truth dataset, we implemented a sophisticated annotation mechanism to select qualified annotators and labels in order to ensure the annotation quality. The details are provided in the following resources. We have a data annotation website for anyone interested in contributing our dataset. They can register, annotate, and get paid. So we apply ClaimBuster on each year's presidential debates. The transcripts are posted on ClaimBuster website with each sentence annotated with its checkworthiness score. So for the 2024 presidential debates, we examined the 2 CNN articles, which selected fact checks covering the debates held on June 27 and September 10. Of the 71 claims selected and fact-checked by CNN from the debates, the average ClaimBuster score was 0.69, significantly higher than the average score of 0.41 for all the sentences in the debates. In addition, Table 1 and 2 shows the number of sentences in the debates with the specific ClaimBuster score ranges and how many of these sentences were fact-checked in the corresponding CNN article. For instance, the first row in the Table 1 shows that 59 sentences have ClaimBuster score between 0.8 and 1, and 9 of which were fact-checked in the corresponding CNN article. Notably, the majority of the claims fact-checked by CNN have ClaimBuster score above 0.6. So this case study highlights the ClaimBuster's ability to effectively identify factual claims worth verifying. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And then last up is Zhengyuan. And I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, please let me know.
Your pronunciation is good.
Thank you.
Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Looks great.
Okay. So my name is Zhang. I'm gonna introduce and demo my ongoing work, Truthfulness Stance Map. Before we dive deeper into the demo, it's important to understand what is truthfulness stance. So people, they make factual claim pretty much every day, particularly in the social media. For instance, the Facebook post said there's a California introduced a new bill that would allow mothers to kill their babies up to 7 days after birth. And political figures, they can also make factual claim in the rally or in the presidential debate. For example, Donald Trump claimed that Florida has the highest homeowner insurance in the nation. Those factual claims, they are examined by the fact checkers. PolitiFact verdict that the first factual claim is false and the second factual claim is true. But people on the social media, they don't have the energy and time to fact check those claims. So they're just discarding those factual claims. As we can see in these examples, social media users, they may hold different views about the truthfulness of the factual claim, no matter the factual claim is true or false. As you can see, some of the social media users, they may believe the factual claim is true. They said this is beyond seek, it's called murder. They may also express a neutral stance. They may asking whether this is true if that's really true, something like this. Some of them, they may believe the factual claim is false. As you can see in this example, it's kind of debunking the factual claim, does not legalize the infanticide. So our work is focusing on the truthfulness stance. We detect the stance taken by the tweets towards the truthfulness of factual claim. Additionally, I want to point out the difference of the problem definition between this work and others. Some of the previous work, they focus on the favorability. It's more like to the political leaning, whether you support, let's say, Donald Trump or refute Donald Trump. This work focuses on the truthfulness of the social media posts toward the factual claim, whether the factual claim is true or false. So what we have done is we built a model, a machine learning model, to automatically classify whether a tweet is believed the factual claim is true. So it will classify the factual claim into 3 classes: positive, neutral or no stance, or negative. So why does it matter? It's because we can use the truthfulness stance as a sensor to gauge the public perception of factual claim, such as generating distribution of social media stance. Additionally, we can identify the community that may be more susceptible to misinformation, helping us develop a strategy to mitigate the misinformation spreading. So here comes the demo. Basically, it's just a map. On the left-hand side is the filter panel. You can select factual claim that's related to 2024 election and select the state you are interested in and select the score range. On the right-hand side, it shows the map and some visualization. Here is the live demo. Let's say we are interested in the factual claim Kamala Harris wore earpiece during the debate to receive answers, and we are interested in Texas here. So the map will directly go to Texas. Okay, let's say we are interested in Austin. So when you click the cluster, it will show a bunch of markers. Each marker represents a tweet. So if we click at the markers, it will show the tweet. And also which city, the location of the tweet, and also the stance. This is negative, which is consistent to the markers. So let's see another example. So you are busted. I knew Kamala Harris wearing earpiece, and here it is. This tweet believe the factual claim is true. So use this tool, like the political campaign, they can gain better understanding of how the factual claim they made affect the social media and how it spread among the US. So, okay. So this is my demo. Thank you.
With that, Betsy and I want to conclude by thanking everyone. Obviously, as we said before, this is not what we had originally planned, but I think we had an awesome conference. Thank you so much. Everybody chipped in. We really, really appreciate everybody's willingness to, jump in here and be as interactive and conversational as possible. And I think this, we really did build on the momentum that we were hoping to build on. And I think we accomplished a lot in the last 2 days. Some immediate next steps. If you haven't already, please send us your slides and your papers. So we're going to get all this up on the conference website after the holiday on Monday. Be on the lookout for us, be on the lookout for email from us as we're going to be uploading these session videos. And as we get the videos and we get everything on the website, we're going to be pushing really hard on social media. So we're really going to try to help promote everyone's work. We really appreciate all the wonderful work and all of the things that everyone has presented over the last couple of days. As Betsy said earlier, and she'll jump on in a second and conclude, but we are planning on building on this momentum. And we are planning on trying to get folks to an in-person conference at WashU. We hope to really kind of build this community out and maybe even think about having annual workshops or conferences like this. And watch your mailbox. We're going to be sending everyone some thank you stuff in the mail. I'm going to put this on so everybody can expect to see something like this. It's really cool beanie. We'd hope to have everybody together so that we could get a cool picture with everybody. But when you get your package, your thank you package, please put your beanie on and take a selfie and use the hashtag on social media. We'd love to see everybody with these cool Caltech beanies on. So with that, turn it over to Betsy.
All right. I am really looking forward to having you all here at WashU in the future. But I want to remind you of my initial charge that we were going to work on something really important and to close. This conference really demonstrates the capacity of our community to collaborate. And over the last 2 days, we have seen this enormous community come together really just between Friday and Thursday. So like over the less than a week. 290 participants have come in, panelists from the frontier of political science, but also panelists from the frontier of government. And I think like that intersection, that space really gives me tremendous hope for what is possible. So this is one of my favorite little like graphics that I share in the department pretty frequently when someone says, somebody should do something about this. And I say, well, aren't you somebody? But I think that graphic works pretty well for all of us here. We're actually doing something. So I think, these are challenging times in terms of like government. I think so much of the narrative we're hearing, even about the fires, is wow, we need better government. In terms of, all of these narratives about election and fiction and the prevalence of misinformation and the challenges of getting the right information out there, it's like we need some more strategies. And I think this community really demonstrates that we're rising to meet the needs of our age. So I think this is a remarkably hopeful moment. We are able to have an impact. Even today, we had impact. So keep up the good work, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you all again. With that, we're done.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you again.
Bye.